Hi everyone, welcome to part two. He's telling me that quite a few producers that he worked for um, basically governed your life. I'm saying exactly what he's telling me to say. They governed your life. You had to be at dinner parties at certain times. They told you when to arrive. They told you when to go to bed. They told you what you wanted to wear. They governed exactly who you spoke to, who you had liaisons with. And if you had a liaison with a man or a woman, it was heavily governed, and you had to be seen with the right person. He's saying if a man liked another man, that was heavily frowned upon. He says it went on a lot, and it was a case of basically you the producers and everybody who watched them believed in a thing called the American dream. And you had to be wholesome, you had to be that heroic persona, really. And he's saying that everything in his life was governed, including, as I mentioned in part one, the boxing. It was only boxing training, but he wasn't allowed to be hit in the face or he wasn't allowed to be marked. Same as with the fencing. If he was using a sword, he wasn't allowed to draw blood or cut each other. He says accidents did happen, but he was heavily governed. And the pressure basically got too much. He's saying he used to curl up into a ball. He used to sit on the floor, tuck his legs in, put his hands over his head, and he didn't cry, but he was crying inside. Even though his persona was this hero and swashbuckler, he says the real me was insecure. He says, right. He's saying he was started suffering after the war. He started suffering from depression, and action took its toll on him, and he was never the same again. He says he saw everything in a different way after the war. He wanted to be him, but they wanted this person, this hero, this swashbuckler. And he says, yeah, that was me. I could portray that. He says, and that was me to a point. But he says, I wanted to be me for a change. And the pressure got to him over time, and he started smoking. He was also drinking, but he says, I wasn't a big drinker, really. He says it was the smoking. The smoking used to help with that stress. And he says, I got to the stage where I just wanted lighting one cigarette up after another one. He says he knew it wasn't going to end well. And he started getting losing his temper with people. He started being snappy, which wasn't him. Because nobody at that stage could understand. There were no such thing as mental illness. Well, there was, but it wasn't talked about because it was a taboo. And he just found he was being in this spiral. And his producer was demanding more and they wanted more from him. And in the end, it took its toll on him. And because he couldn't be himself, and he passed. He's telling me that he passed in Spain, and he said it was a beautiful country, and you know, he loved it dearly. But he wished he could have spent more time there as a sightseer, as a tourist. But because of his fame, he couldn't. And he realised that it was, you know, it was trapped basically, and he felt trapped. And he says he didn't want to pass into the world of spirit, but he says because of the way I lived at the time, he says it was inevitable. He says, and when it came, he says, you know, I couldn't, I just couldn't take it anymore. He left his wife behind with children. His wife is telling me it's called, sorry, what was that again? Thank you, Debbie. And he said he just, you know, even though he'd been seeing other ladies, a lady called Lorna, and one or two others, he said that, you know, it just wasn't good. It was a recipe for disaster, and that disaster came. He passed in the early 50s. Sorry, my fault, correction. He passed in the late 50s. And he, because he just mentioned something about the early 50s, and I took that's my fault. He passed in the late 50s. And he said that in a way he was glad to go. In another way, he was leaving children behind, wife behind, and he says that he didn't like that, and that was his thing. Thank you, bless you. He's thanking me for listening. He's thanking me for putting who he really was across, which was the important thing that he wanted. He didn't want his persona putting across. He wanted him and how he felt, and nobody knew this, and nobody still knows this, but now they do, and that's what he wanted. His descendants are still living. He's wanted to say that he's around you all the time and you can feel him. He loves you greatly and dearly, and he's saying that he has never ever stopped loving you, especially around Christmas and Thanksgiving. So he always remembers your birthdays, and he wants you to thank you. He wants to thank you for keeping the black ribbon around his picture, which he says, you know, that's a mark of respect, and I thank you for that, because he's telling me that you put his medals and things in a case with a picture from his wartime antics, and you put them in a frame and you have them on the wall, and he thanks you for that, for remembering one of his personas that he was, and he was a pilot, basically, a flyboy, and he's thanking you for that. And on that note, he's pulling away. He's saying, God bless you. And that's exactly what he did. And thank you, bless you, thank you. Okay, God bless. And on that note, he's pulling away. And I'd just like to thank everybody for joining me and watching this video and your added support. And on that note, thank you very much. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.